All right, let's go ahead and get started. Looks like we've got a bit of a good crowd today, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the country for our webinar, Exploring Externships. Roughly a quarter of the U.S. workforce requires a credential or license to participate in their occupation, and oftentimes this requires hands-on training like an externship. We know it's hard to make sure students are where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. So today we're here to walk you through different methods for making sure your students are getting the hands-on training they need. We have Luke Sophinos with us today. Luke is the founder and CEO of CourseKey. He's a Teal Fellowship alumnus where he received mentorship from Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal and first investor in Facebook. And Luke was most recently identified by Forbes as one of the 30 under 30 leaders to watch in education. Since founding CourseKey, Luke and his company have worked with more than 90 campuses at both small and large institutions across the country. And he believes he's seen every method under the sun for tackling externship attendance tracking. I'm going to hit Luke with a few different questions, and our goal for today is to let you identify new techniques for tracking externship attendance. Feel free to ask questions throughout, and we'll spend a little bit of time at the end going through some of those. So Luke, do you mind giving us a quick background on you and what brought you to found CourseKey?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me, Hannah. Looking forward to sharing as much as I can on the topic today. Quick background on CourseKey. We're about a 6-year-old company. We were founded at San Diego State University. The whole notion of the business was really enabling institutions and enabling instructors to tap into the devices students were showing up with every single day to their learning environments, whether it was their phone, their tablet, or their laptop. What we kept seeing is schools and teachers really fighting against these devices and feeling as if they were distractions and not, taking an opportunity to turn them into learning tools, right? So at CourseKey, our focus was, how can we take a lot of the administrative pieces that, folks in the academic community deal with every day, whether it's taking attendance, whether it's, pushing out quizzes or exams or, different material, and really put that on the student device and automate a lot of the administrative pieces that go with, their jobs, and also boost the engagement, really give all students, regardless of, a voice in the classroom or in the education environment, right? So, you mentioned it, but 90+ campuses, we're leveraging all sorts of environments, whether it's externships, clinical and lab environments, or traditional classroom settings. And really excited to be here. We're going to focus on the externship piece today. Obviously, it's a big challenging problem to tackle and hard environment for folks to kind of understand what's going on and how their students are performing. So looking forward to drilling in with you.
Great, and thanks for that. So Luke, why don't we start off by talking about externship challenges? So what is it that you continuously hear in conversation that schools are having as far as challenges go with tracking externship attendance?
Yeah, so great question. So, I think the biggest piece of this to just think about is we're relying on a non-school employee to really sign off on hours that our students are accumulating in these off-site environments, right? And this can become extremely hard to get timely information from those individuals. These folks have day jobs. This is probably, number 9 on their checklist of the day. So, when it comes to all the Title IV requirements and how fast a lot of the institutions that we work with have to get this information, it can become very difficult to rely on a non-school employee who you are not at the forefront of their thinking on a day-to-day basis, right? Getting this information in a timely manner and ensuring, that it's accurate, that it's honest is also another big challenge. So, when a lot of folks that we work with, and I'll get into the different processes, but leverage pen and paper, and it can take a week or 2 weeks for them to get the information about when a student showed up and how long that they were there for. And so, the timeliness becomes crucial. The other piece we don't like to mention it is there's some dishonesty that can go into this. Students can, kind of add more hours than they were actually there for. They can get credit for hours that they shouldn't have gotten credit for. And that can just be a breakdown of processes, and we'll drill into that in a moment here. And then a lot of times too is the school can, the externship site cannot even purposefully, record time inaccurately. So we hear a lot of cases where that externship coordinator is just signing off and, checking the box and, giving students time for hours that they didn't deserve. So the dishonesty portion can be purposefully and unpurposefully. But nonetheless, externships are a very challenging thing, and we're here to work through them with you all today.
Sure, and challenging sounds like a bit of an understatement. So now that we understand a bit more about the challenges and headaches that schools have, what are you seeing them do to tackle the problems today?
Yeah, so great question. I'm going to try to frame this with Susie and Melissa here, our smiling faced kind of folks. And so Susie's going to be our student, Melissa's going to be our externship coordinator. My goal is to just kind of give you examples of what they would experience in each of these different environments. So the most common one we see today is a traditional pen and paper method, right? So Susie's showing up to that externship site. She's signing in on a piece of paper. Melissa's taking that piece of paper. She's verifying that Susie's hours are accurate. And then she's either taking a picture of that and emailing it to the school officials. A lot of cases, those are registrars or administrators, or she's even faxing it. We hear about that too. So, pros of this, it's simple, it's easy to set up. It takes 2 seconds to probably get rolling. Cons of this, I think outweigh them. You're constantly having to bombard Melissa to get these hours and get her sign off and approval of these hours over to you in a timely manner. When it comes to all the Title IV reporting that I'm sure a lot of folks on the call have to deal with, we know how challenging it can be when you're waiting a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get that information. So that's the most common that we see. Something that we're seeing more schools move to is actually having call centers within their institutions. And in this case, they're basically tasked with continuously calling Melissa, our externship coordinator, to get the hour verification for Susie. This can be burdensome on Melissa. It can drive her crazy. It can drive her up a wall. So the on-site call centers, you can probably get the information quicker, but it's probably going to hurt the relationship with your externship provider. We're seeing folks also starting to leverage hardware. So this is the school teaming up with the institution to set up a PC or a tablet at the site where a student can go and check in. Pro of this is that the school is getting pretty timely information. So they're seeing when the student's checking in, when they're leaving. The con is there's going to be a pretty significant setup process involved. You got to ensure that the externship provider is okay with this. It can be expensive if you have hundreds of these externship sites. It can add up pretty quickly. And then the third is you just got to make sure that you're meeting all the regulatory requirements when it comes to setting these up. A lot of times externship sites are in medical offices. The compliance, requirements that come with that can be pretty heavy. So ensuring that the PC or the tablet is meeting all those can be a little challenging. Something we're seeing more and more people move to, and this is a result of one of the reasons CourseKey was born, is the ubiquity of student devices. Is students are showing up. So in this case, Susie is showing up. She's pulling out her iPhone. She's basically logging on to a portal. That portal is a web form where she can basically say, I'm at this externship site today. I was here for this many hours, and then that can basically be shot to that externship provider. Pro of this, it's convenient. It doesn't put a lot of stress on the externship site. Challenge is there's no security verification here outside of a quick sign off. So you have no location verification. So a student could be on their couch, realistically checking in and out of class. So be careful when you see a lot of people, pushing for these kind of online browser tools. The more recent and common one that we see, more of the innovative schools pushing towards is these mobile apps with some GPS capability. So you have the student Susie, our student in this example, downloads an application on her phone. She shows up to the site. She taps one button. That application actually verifies her location. It verifies that she's at the externship site. And then that can be pushed for a second verification sign off to the externship coordinator. So, again, just real quickly, top of the list, pen and paper. We see that very, very common. And then as we work down, they become less common, but we're seeing more and more schools kind of move to these technology-based approaches.
Great. And would you mind talking to us a little bit about how these various methods can affect the school's relationship with their site providers?
Absolutely. So, in a lot of cases, in almost all cases, the the externship site provider can be the lifeblood of the institution, right? So ensuring that we have a great relationship with them is of the utmost importance. Ensuring that we have a place where we can place our students and get them into the careers and the jobs that they're looking for is so valuable. So I talked about it briefly, but when you adopt a method that is equates to constantly bombarding the site providers with sign off and with verification, it can become really damaging to those relationships. So I always lean towards pick a solution that is going to put the least onus on the site provider. How can you tap into a channel of communication that they're already using frequently that doesn't require training? An example could be an email or push notification or a text message. What is the simplest way for them to sign off on these hours while ensuring that data is accurate, while ensuring that the folks at the institution are getting it in a timely manner? So always rely on least onus way to ensure that those relationships with the site provider stay strong.
Great. And so if you were to open a school tomorrow and you had programs that had externship requirements, what method would you choose to track attendance and why?
Sure. So, I go right to the mobile app with GPS. And here's the pros of the mobile app with GPS. Every student shows up with a device. Every student's got a device in their pocket today. Quick story, at CourseKey, we have 100,000 plus users growing every day, and we see very little instances where they don't. In this case, they show up to the site, they tap one button on their phones. It's very easy for the student to get trained and understand what they're doing. And then that's actually verified. So there's this level of verification that the accreditors love to know that they're actually within a specific location. The other piece I like about this is then it's being pushed to the externship provider via as simple as an email, right? So it's a form of communication and channel that they're already used to. You can move forward with your Title IV reporting right when a student checks in, and then you have a second layer of verification just as a sense of security on top of that. So it's quick, it's easy. The school is getting real-time, timely information. You have this verification element that the accreditor loves. So absolutely, I'd go with the mobile apps with the GPS technology.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. And so, all of us here, you, me, the audience, we're all in the education space. So we know that compliance and efficiency are very hot topics these days. How are these impacted by externship attendance collection?
Yeah, so, I kind of drill into the two pieces I've already brought up. And the compliance piece is obviously huge, especially if you're a Title IV institution. So the reporting quality of the data you're collecting is so important. If I were to really focus on the area, it's just the accuracy and the integrity of the data, ensuring that students don't have a quick and easy way to game this, ensuring that, even accidentally, that externship site providers don't have a way to misappropriate hours or misappropriate times becomes very, very valuable. And we talk to schools that have findings around these things all the time. I mentioned that. So really ensuring that you're picking something where your data is accurate from a compliance standpoint. And then the efficiency is, how can you put folks at your institution in a position where they can spend time not chasing down hours, not chasing down students or externship site providers, and really focusing on, placing on the students that for some reason didn't show up and reaching out to them and helping figure out why they didn't show up to externship. And really placing, their emphasis on getting those students into their careers and their jobs. So the second you can remove people from this administrative piece and automate a lot of the things they're working on, it frees them up for what's important, and that's placing our students in their careers.
Wonderful. And so how do you see externship attendance trends changing over the next 5 to 10 years?
So I love to start this question off by thinking of the last 5 years first. So if we just think of the last 5 years, everybody was on pen and paper 5 years ago. So we've already seen a massive evolution with devices becoming ubiquitous, right? 5 years ago, not everybody had a device. It wasn't possible to leverage a lot of these technologies I talked about. So I like to just kind of premise the question with, think about how far we've already come into these technologies where you can tap into a student's device to verify. Now going forward, what does the future hold? I think we'll see the accuracy of location-based verification get even better. We're talking about GPS today. At CourseKey, we experiment with a lot of different technologies, from Bluetooth and sound technologies that can actually verify room level attendance, which is popular in classroom environments, but we'll continue to see this get more and more accurate. So we'll know exactly how a student's kind of moving throughout the building within that externship environment, which will be very interesting information for both the institution and the site provider. The second piece is we'll see evolution in digital verification. So not just looking at, where's the student's device and how long was the device in a certain area, but we'll see elements like facial recognition come into the fold. We'll see, we'll have the ability to ensure that, Susie is who she says she is and where she's in the building and how long she's in the building for. And this will become so powerful to the institution from an academic perspective. And then the third piece that we love to think about at CourseKey is just the data side of this, specifically around prediction. So if we see that Susie just rocked her externship, she was showing up on time, she got placed right into a career right away at that externship environment. We don't really know why today. We don't really have the data to understand that. So if there's, there becomes ways for the more information that we can collect to be able to create basically a persona of Susie and tie that to future students. So we can know all these different characteristics that will help a student navigate through that externship environment and replicate Susie's experience, right, and getting placed quickly. So we'll see a lot of really interesting insights specifically around predictive analytics and predictive metrics that relate to student success come into the fold.
Great. Well, thank you so much. These have been really great insights into the market. That was the end of the questions that we have prepared for you today. So why don't we turn it over and see what the audience wants to know?
All right. Hit me with it. Let's see what these guys got.
All right. Let's see. To first question. So somebody wrote in, at our institution, we have students who don't get along with their providers. What sort of pushback have you seen, as far as schools dealing with student relationships with their sites go?
Yeah. So, look, anytime you're sending a student into the workplace, there's a cultural element to this, right? And it's just like when you start a new job, you got to make sure that they're clicking with their coworkers or, their potential future bosses, all these different things, right? It makes the workplace a healthy environment. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. And that, we always think of, well, is it because the student was behaving badly? And that's not necessarily the case. It could just not have been a cultural fit. And so, whether it's not a cultural fit or whether, there's bad behavior on either side, the externship side or the student side, I think it's just important to rip the Band-Aid off and help place them in a new environment. And do it quickly. The longer that people suffer in these environments, the challenging it becomes for their relationship and really for the school's relationship with that site provider. So I always recommend, moving them out and into a different site as soon as possible.
Perfect. And let's see. We had somebody else write in. Where have you seen schools run into issues from a Title IV compliance perspective when it comes to externships? Sure.
So, there's kind of three things that we always see people run into issues with. The first is just the accuracy of the information, which I think I briefly mentioned. So if you're running a pen and paper process, that can get really messy really quickly. The second I would drill into is the timeliness of the collection, which I also briefly mentioned. So how can if the school is not getting the information very quickly, it can become a huge challenge from a Title IV perspective. So if for some reason you're drawing down on funds and you're not finding out the student wasn't even showing up for 3 weeks, now you're doing a return to Title IV, it can be a really challenging thing. And then the last piece is we see a lot of folks that are running a paper process and just the disorganization that can cause. So you could have multiple sites running multiple processes if you're doing pen and paper, where one site they're scanning it to your institution, the other site they're taking a picture of it and texting it, the other site they're taking a picture of it and emailing it. And so, you can imagine how quickly this can become an absolute mess. And when you have an accreditation visit, that stuff can get uncovered very, very quickly. So, getting digital, I think, becomes really important. And we see a lot of institutions, moving to that.
Wonderful. And let's see, we have a couple more questions. Somebody else wrote in, how do you see a difference between the training for externship staff among the different methods you walk through?
Yeah, so, I go back to the relationship with the site provider. Pick a solution that requires little to no training for that externship provider. This is how can you tap into solutions that are leveraging existing forms of communication that they're used to. So this is the text, the email, type of functions, and also while ensuring that the data is accurate, right? So you don't necessarily want them taking a picture of and texting it, but if they can get a quick text message signing off on how long a student was in through an automated service, that's much more effective. It doesn't necessarily require training, right? They're using that function on their phone every single day. So just picking a solution that requires little to no training, I think is important for the relationship. And look, they got a lot on their plate. They got a full day job, and this is a little piece of it.
Great, and we're going to take two more. Next one is, a lot of the conversation has referenced healthcare externships. What sort of crossover is there in what you've seen in healthcare for trades apprenticeships?
Yeah, so we've seen I think from a crossover standpoint, we see a lot of the same problems, right? It's really just the environment that's changing. So it's still, I would just drill back into this timeliness, this data accuracy, the integrity component. Typically in the trade side, you're dealing with, in a lot of cases, we see people that aren't necessarily leveraging technology in their environments. So in that case, you're really putting more onus on the student to really check in. You're probably not going to be able to set up some sort of device there like you may be able to do in a healthcare setting. So I think the crossover is there. I think with all the things that we've mentioned today, the only exception would just be if you're going with the digital solution, you want to ensure it's as easy on the trades apprenticeship folks as possible.
Perfect. And last one we'll do today is, how do you ensure that students are being honest in completing their hours if there's nobody at the site checking them in?
Yeah, so I just drill into multiple layers of verification. Like whatever method you choose, there's probably always going to be some sort of way around it. So the more layers of verification that's non-intrusive to the site provider, the better. So I talked about the GPS capability. The first layer is the student checking in. You're verifying the location. The second layer of verification is a text message or an email to the site provider, right? So just finding solutions that have multiple layers of verification, so that when you have an accreditor come visit, you can really walk them through, all the different things you're doing to ensure the accuracy and the timeliness of the data that you're collecting.
Perfect. Well, those are all the questions that we're going to take today. Thank you, Luke, for joining us, and thank you, everyone, for taking some time out of your day to join us as well. That's Exploring Externships, and feel free to email in other questions.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for your time. Appreciate it.